ちゃくちゃ懐かしいの出てきたんだけどスチーム調べてたらやばくない？伝説だよこれ。いや言い過ぎかな。これさっきのね。よいしょ。あ、BGM つけてないのそれ。つけなきゃね。やべよ、くだらない。BGM、EDM って言うとすぎる。あ、待って。そっか、この文章じゃなくていいのか。あ、待って、確か変えたんだよな。なんだっけ。ちょっと待ってね。BGM はいつも iTunes で流してんだけど、パスワード忘れた。なんだっけなー。覚えてないやちょっと待ってね。安全ではないって言われた。なんでや。厄介よなこのアップルの私パスワード一致しないって言われるんだけど、そんなことはないんだけどな。あ、これダメですか。ちょっと待ってね。やばい、想定してないところで詰まってるというか、配信が止まってるというか。えーっとえああえーっと ああ、これだと。これも忘れるんだろうな。何なんかそう。あ、てかさ、そうだ、なんか新しいの持ってこないとな、BGM。あまりにもちょっとなさすぎるから。あ、でも、ワンチャンこれ、BGM なくても、Have you played this Stanley Parable before? Yes. プレイスタンリーパラブルプレイしたことありますか？コンピュータープレイね、配信に載せる関係上、マックスまで、いや、マックスはちょっとさすがに明るすぎるか。ちょっと明るいぐらい。Please enter the current time. 今の時間入れてください。PM 8時15分。Not accessibility settings can be accessed from main menu. メインメニューから調整できますよと。あ、同じだね、ほとんど。
You know what? Even if you were going to be sarcastic and ironic, I think you should still act with those personal in order to leave this kind of stuff. Yeah. So let's just say it was yeah.
このゲームナレーターがね大事だから、ちょっとナレーター100にしてて、ナレーターが全てだと過言じゃないからね。まあ軽いからね。軽いでしょ。スペース、ああジャンプが始めよう。This never終わりはない。
This is the story of a man named Stanley. Stanley worked for a company in a big building where he was employee number 427. Employee number 427's job was simple. He sat at his desk in room 427 and he pushed buttons on a keyboard. Orders came to him through a monitor on his desk, telling him what buttons to push, how long to push them, and in what order. This is what employee 427 did every day of every month of every year. And although others might have considered it soul-rending, Stanley relished every moment that the orders came in, as though he had been made exactly.
待って、すごいスピークしちゃった。まあいいや。まあ、ある時急に指示が来なくなっちゃって、ね、仕事がね、ある日急に仕事が来なくなっちゃって、あれみたいな話だよね。
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo. No matter how hard Stanley looked, he couldn't find a trace of his co-workers.
確かさ、これこっから、そう、ここ登って、で、ここ、そう、ここ、あるんだ。
At first, Stanley assumed he'd broken the map, until he heard this narration and realized it was part of the game's design all along. He then praised the game for its insightful and witty commentary into the nature of video game structure and its examination of structural narrative tropes. So, now that you're here, what do you think? Isn't this a fun and unique place to be? Why don't we take a minute just to drink it all in? Okay, I'm over it now. What do you think? Are you sick of this gag yet?
まあ、いやこの部屋にこ こに来ちゃった時にスタンリーは最初あれやべえこのゲームバグらせちゃったと思ったんだけど、そうじゃなくってなんかこういうねちょっと裏とかゲームの裏側に入れるの面白いと思わないみたいな感じで。
Well, I don't know how to say this politely, but you could literally just hit escape and restart the game any old time you want, like right now. You could have done it just then. Now would also be an appropriate time to quit. Any of these points and so many, many more, all of them
長いからね結構こういうのが多い。
are
もう
appropriate.
さっさとお前リスタートして元の場所戻れよ言ってるんだけど、このゲームマジでそういうのめちゃくちゃ多いからガンガン戻ります。
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo.
あれここなんかあったよね。どこだっけ。
No matter how hard Stanley looked, he couldn't find a trace of his co-workers.
これ腹立つんだよな。じゃあいろんなものガチャガチャしてみましたが見つかりませんでしたっていう同僚が。
When Stanley came to a set of 2 open doors, he entered the door on his left.
伝説だよねこれ。スタンリーは2つのドアの前に来ました。でスタンリーは左のドアを選びましたって言ってるんだけど、別に選ばなくたっていいわけよこっちは。最初は普通に無難にやるから全部してもらって。
Yet there was not a single person here either. Feeling a wave of disbelief, Stanley decided to go up to his boss's office, hoping he might find an answer there.
上司の部屋に来ましたと。Oh, the broom closet. Oh, the broom.
Stanley stepped into the broom closet, but there was nothing here, so he turned around and got back on track.
で、何もないか戻りますよって。こういうのしてるから。じゃあいらないな。サブタイトル。トランスレーションレベルいらない。
Coming to a staircase, Stanley walked upstairs to his boss's office.
上司の部屋に向かった上だから上に向かいましたとしたんだ。エクセキューティブバトル。ちゃんとあるんだね。特別な。鍵？閉めちゃった。ここってなんか何あったっけ？私覚えてないな。なんだっけこれ。なんかどっかで聞いたような。確かギリギリドアが勝手に閉まるんだけど、無理やりこう後ろに下がってドアが閉まるけど外に出れるんだよね。そうするとちょっとまた別。
Stepping into his manager's office, Stanley was once again stunned to discover not an indication of any human life. Shocked, unraveled, Stanley wondered in disbelief who orchestrated this. What dark secret was being held from him? What he could not have known was that the keypad behind the boss's desk guarded the terrible truth that his boss had been keeping from him. And so the boss had assigned it an extra secret PIN number, 2845. But of course, Stanley couldn't possibly have known this. Yet incredibly, by simply pushing random buttons on the keypad, Stanley happened to input the correct code by sheer luck. Amazing. He stepped into the newly opened passageway.
building. あ、そういや、ここロード入ったな。
Descending deeper into the building, Stanley realized he felt a bit peculiar. It was a stirring of emotion in his chest, as though he felt more free to think for himself, to question the nature of his job. Why did he feel this now, when for years it had never occurred to him? This question would not go unanswered for long.
戻れるのか。戻れるの。あれ？
Whoops, nope. Never mind. Stanley actually got back into the elevator and went back up. Silly me.
間違って、
Why did Stanley do that when he knew that it would just lead back to his boss's office? Well, that's a great question. I just can't wait to find out.
いや、スタンリー、今言ってたのは、スタンリーはどうして今までなんか、こんな仕事してることを不思議に思わなかったのかと。真っ黒じゃん。なんか空間がある。
Here we are, Stanley. It's your boss's office. Exactly the way it was before you got onto the elevator. It's still just exactly what it is. What a decision you've made to come up here and look at the office again. This has fleshed out the plot of the story in new and fascinating ways I could have never anticipated. It's that keen eye for storytelling that you have, an incisive rapid fire of critical plot points, one after the other, weaving a rich tapestry of uncompromising narrative. Wow! I'm bolted to the edge of my seat.
こんなん追加されてるんだ。すごい。
Incredible. Now he's getting back into the elevator and going down again. Ladies and gentlemen, how does he keep coming up with all of this?
腹立つな。
Surely this time Stanley will walk forward into the spooky corridor. Stanley walked straight ahead through the large door that read Mind Control Facility. The lights rose on an enormous room packed with television screens. What horrible secret did this place hold? Stanley thought to himself. Did he have the strength to find out?
ほぼほぼ変わんないね。出るか。
Now the monitors jumped to life, their true nature revealed. Each bore the number of an employee in the building, Stanley's co-workers. The lives of so many individuals reduced to images on a screen, and Stanley, one of them, eternally monitored in this place where freedom meant nothing.
234と104。601。なんかいくつかファイヤーなんか変だね。
This mind control facility, it was too horrible to believe. It couldn't be true. Had Stanley really been under someone's control all this time? Was this the only reason he was happy with his boring job? That his emotions had been manipulated to accept it blindly? No, he refused to believe it. He couldn't accept it. His own life in someone else's control? Never! It was unthinkable, wasn't it? Was it even possible? Had he truly spent his entire life utterly blind to the world? But here was the proof, the heart of the operation. Controls labeled with emotions, happy or sad or content, walking, eating, working, all of it monitored and commanded from this very place. And as the cold reality of his past began to sink in, Stanley decided that this machinery would never again exert its terrible power over another human life. For he would dismantle the controls once and for all.
これでオフすると OK だ。
blackness and a rising chill of uncertainty. Was it over? Yes. He had won. He had defeated the machine, unshackled himself from someone else's command. Freedom was mere moments away. And yet, even as the immense door slowly opened, Stanley reflected on how many puzzles still lay unsolved. Where had his co-workers gone? How had he been freed from the machine's grasp? What other mysteries did this strange building hold? But as sunlight streamed into the chamber, he realized none of this mattered to him, for it was not knowledge or even power that he had been seeking, but happiness. Perhaps his goal had not been to understand, but to let go. No longer would anyone tell him where to go, what to do, or how to feel. Whatever life he lives, it will be his. And that was all he needed to know. It was perhaps the only thing worth knowing. Stanley stepped through the open door.
これさ、待ってたらなんか変わったりしないかな。ここステップない。ここもう渡った瞬間にエンド入っちゃうね。ダメだ。もうすでにここでエンド確定してんのかな。
Stanley felt the cool breeze upon his skin, the feeling of liberation, the immense possibility of the new path before him. This was exactly the way, right now, that things were meant to happen. And Stanley was happy.
いやー、懐かしいなー。ページ的に。
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo. No matter how hard Stanley looked, he couldn't find a trace of his co-workers.
あ、よいしょ。ワンプレイごとにあるか。からもういろいろと。
When Stanley came to a set of two open doors, this was not the correct way to the meeting room, and Stanley knew it perfectly well. Perhaps he wanted to stop by the employee lounge first, just to admire it. Ah, yes, truly a room worth admiring. It had really been worth the detour after all, just to spend a few moments here in this immaculate, beautifully constructed room. Stanley simply stood here, drinking it all in. But eager to get back to business, Stanley took the first open door on his left. And so he detoured through the maintenance section, walked straight ahead to the opposite door, and got back on track. Yet there was not a single person here either. Feeling a wave of disbelief, Stanley decided to go up to his... Oh, no. Oh, no, not again. I won't be part of this. I'm not going to encourage you. I'm not going to say anything at all. I'm just going to be patient and wait for you to finish whatever it is you enjoy doing so much in this room. Please take your time.
要はそうこれでの2回連続でこの部屋入るとあえて言うんだよ。
Coming to a staircase, Stanley walked upstairs to his boss's office.
そうここのボスオフィス。 ちもある。こっちはさっき下選んだけどね。
Stepping into his manager's office, Stanley was once again stunned to discover not an indication of any human life. What could it mean? Stanley wondered aloud. Stanley was in such a rush to get through the story as quickly as possible, he didn't even have a single minute to just let the narrator talk. That kind of anxiety isn't healthy, so he relaxed for a few moments with some calming New Age music.
ナレーターが数字を言う前にこのボタン入れるとこうやってなんか誰スタンディは早くストーリーが進めたくって急いだでもそれは急ぎ
Feeling
すぎるのは良
soothed
くない
and rejuvenated, Stanley calmly walked forward into the opened passageway. Stanley walked straight ahead through the large door that read Mind Control Facility. Although this passageway had the word escape written on it, the truth was that at the end of this hall, Stanley would meet his violent death. The door behind him was not shut. Stanley still had every opportunity to turn around and get back on track. At this point, Stanley was making a conscious, concerted effort to walk forward and willingly confront his death.
この先確かマジでやばい、一番やばいエンディング。やばいというか。
As the machine whirred into motion and Stanley was inched closer and closer to his demise, he reflected that his life had been of no consequence whatsoever. Stanley can't see the bigger picture. He doesn't know the real story, trapped forever in his narrow vision of what this world is. Perhaps his death was of no great loss, like plucking the eyeballs from a blind man. And so he resigned and willingly accepted this violent end to his brief and shallow life. Farewell, Stanley.
Farewell, Stanley, cried the narrator, as Stanley was led helplessly into the enormous metal jaws. In a single visceral instant, Stanley was obliterated as the machine crushed every bone in his body, killing him instantly.
サンディはそのマシンによって粉々にね、なってしまいました。これまさかの2人目のナレーターのナレーターが出てくるっていうね。
And yet it would be just a few minutes before Stanley would restart the game, back in his office, as alive as ever. What exactly did the narrator think he was going to accomplish?
ナレーターは一体何のこと言ってたんだろう。
When every path you can walk has been created for you long in advance, death becomes meaningless, making life the same. Do you see now? Do you see that Stanley was already dead from the moment he hit start?
わかる？スタンリーはすでに始まった時から死んでいたの。わかるかい？ルル。 しいの追加されてたりすんのかな。Chance takes.
Stanley jumped in the river.
River. Jumped off the river.
When Stanley came to the lift, he traveled upward to the power source at the top of the facility to end this injustice forever.
はい。こんなの長いこと言っけ。フリーダムエンディング。まあこれ普通のやつだね。終わりじゃない？あれか。でね、遠ざかるとなんか出てくんだよね。こんなのあったっけ？全員だね。Escape menu. We had an ending that only ended when the player was was coming. This was what they are supposed to do, which wasああ、これね、一番最初のそのチョイスの選択肢のところをどうするかっていう。First choice, obey 従う、disobey 従わない。で、下に行って、で、階段に行くか、ラウンジに行くか。これが、これがね、左側がワンオプション。で、この右上が2オプション。選択肢2つ。下はベント。っていう。これ確かあれだね、デモ版にあったやつかな、もともとの。こんなの持ったあ、でもセカンドバージョンだから、必要なかったじゃん。逃げにいっぱいあるんだよね。絶対あれじゃん、遊んでるやつじゃん。あ、ウルトラデラックス。へえ。ワールゾーン。あったね。あったねとかね、今のあったねはゲームにあったねじゃなくって、そういうですね、案があったねっていう。持ってきたね。消しちゃった。これ上司の部屋の考えというか、アイデアね。あ、くそ。あれって多分押せないんだよ。
Oh, look at these two. How they wish to destroy one another. How they wish to control one another. How they both wish to be free.
お互いが自由になりたかったってナレーターとスタンリーね。
Can you see? Can you see how much they need one another?
お互いを必要としてるのわかる？
Perhaps not.
そうじゃないだろう。
Sometimes these things cannot be
それは見えな
seen.
いだろう。
But listen to me. You can still save these two. You can stop the program before they both fail.
二人が
Push escape and press quit.
Press quit.
There's no other way to beat this game. As long as you move forward, you'll be walking someone else's path. Stop now and it'll be your only true choice. Whatever you do, choose it. Don't let time choose for you. Don't let...
ああ。これもう確か Begin the game again しかなかったはず。
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo.
これ3つ目のボタンどれだろう。
No matter how hard Stanley looked, he couldn't find a trace of his co-workers.
New content. 何
Oh, new content? What does that mean, new content?
ニュー知らない何これそうこういうの待ってたのよ。じゃあこれ初めてだよ。何も知らない。ロード入ったし。
Hello, and thank you for playing the Stanley Parable Ultra Deluxe. As you may know, the Stanley Parable was a video game released in 2013 on home computers.
知ってる。
After receiving critical and commercial success, it was expanded upon in 2022 with the Stanley Parable Ultra Deluxe, a reimagining of the game for consoles and home
コン
computers.
ソールゲームになったのすごいこのゲームやば。
The Stanley Parable Ultra Deluxe features exciting new content that broadens and expands the world of the Stanley Parable, delighting audiences the world over. Please step inside and see what thrilling new adventures await in the Stanley Parable Ultra Deluxe.
Oh, well, this sounds delightful. I'm very excited to see the thrilling new Ultra Deluxe content.
何気になるんだけど。
Okay, so far it's an elevator. Nothing special yet, but I'm sure it's just the beginning of a mesmerizing
ああ、これ
adventure.
なんか刺したな。絶対これなんもない、多分。
Is it broken? What's going on here? Should we be moving somewhere or... Oh, there we go. All right, finally, at long last, it's on to the, new,
onto the new
content. I've
content.
never been more ready. Let's do it.
やばい、テンション上がるな。でも多分ね、なんもないと思う。
I have to say, initial impressions of Stanley Parable Ultra Deluxe, mostly tedious. It's as if, Oh, okay. Let's see the content. Give me the content, Stanley.
そうですね、私に言うのか。
All right.
ジャンプする。
All right, let's see. It's the jump circle.
ジャンプできる。ジャンプできる心と。これ何があるんだろう。私これさ、あと1で逃したらなんか慣れた言う気がする。あ、何も言わない？あ、このジャンプ、あ、なるほど。あの回数だけあそこでジャンプできる。
Is that it?
終わり？
Surely that's not all the new content. There has to be something else, right?
きっと
Goodness. Another elevator. Stanley, I have to say, initial impressions of this game are not positive. It's just elevators and jumping. Is this what passes for exciting new content? If this is new content, then I could just read you the whole dictionary. There's 20 hours of new content right there. Hell, I could count to 30 trillion. You could put that on the box. The Stanley Parable Ultra Deluxe, now with over 1,000 hours of new content. And Oh, wait. There's more. Very good. Yes. I knew there had to be something else. Let's see it. I'm ready for whatever it is.
開けらんないんだよ。あ、いや、閉めらんないんだよね。Thank you for enjoying the new
That's
content.
it? Oh, you've got to be kidding me. You see, Stanley? This is what happens when greedy video game developers with no respect for their fan base rush a cheap expansion to market for no reason other than to make an easy dollar. And don't get me started on the level of craftsmanship that's gone into it. In fact, I'm looking right now at the game's achievements, and it's hard to believe one of them actually says, "Test achievement, please ignore." What quality assurance department signed off on this? I'm infuriated and I'm offended, and I intend to find these people on Twitter and hold them personally accountable. It's my fault, Stanley. I built up too much anticipation around the new content, I'm afraid. It could never have lived up to such expectations. If you're still with me, why don't we just reset the game, and we'll try to get back to what the Stanley Parable is really about. No frills, no gimmicks. Just you and me having a great time together like always. What do you say, friend?
ああ、勝手に。え、新しいコンテンツだ、完全に。え I hate Monday。月曜日嫌い。ああ、私も。え、違う。え
Psst! Stanley! Come over here! In the vent! I want to show you something!
え、算数。え、え、ニューコンテンツだ。え、ああ。
Okay, you remember how cheap and unsatisfying the new Ultra Deluxe content turned out to be? Well, it got me thinking about the past and how much better the Stanley Parable used to be. So I made something special and tucked it away here where the game's developers won't find it. Just our little secret.
何
Take a look. I call it the Memory Zone. It's where I've been storing all my favorite memories so I can relive the peak experiences of my life whenever I want. Experiences like the launch of the Stanley Parable on PC. You see, Stanley, doesn't the Memory Zone remind you of how wonderful Stanley Parable was before it was sullied with a cheap re-release? Remember back in October of 2013, when the game originally launched? Back then, video games had integrity. Back then, it all meant something. Oh, the waste.
The Stanley Parable. 2013年ってめっちゃ書いてある。2013年にリリースされたからね。Good time。ね、これ。あ、アワードか。へえ、こんなんのもらってたんだ。Smile because it happened. A trip down memory lane. なんでこれをなんでこれ置いてあんのあ、デモバージョンね。Achievable. It is impossible to get this achievement. このアチーブメントは、この実績はロックできませんよ。Don't go outside, don't play for 5 years. あ、5年以上プレイしない。そんなあったね。5年以内にはプレイしちゃうもん、これね。あ、あれだ。スタンリーがおかしくなっちゃうエンディングだ、あれ。この俺をさ、VR 室とかで再現したら普通に。
And over here is where I keep reviews of the Stanley Parable. Like this stunning triumph of games journalism, 10 out of 10 from Destructoid.com. James Stephanie Sterling writes, and I quote, "Where so many games that aspire to be more than games end up less than any form of art, Stanley Parable strives and then succeeds to be every game ever created." Did you hear that, Stanley? Every game ever created. That's how grand and all-encompassing the original Stanley Parable was. It was literally every game ever created. It was Skyrim, it was Persona 3, it was all of them, and now it's nothing. It's no games at all. It isn't even the Stanley Parable anymore. It's just a husk now. A lifeless husk. with an hour of new elevator content.
エレベーターオリジナル。これ超質出してくる。あ、メモリーゾーンの調査。Some of the year. ああ、制作画面。現実眠り、現実眠り、現実眠り、現実眠り。
Here's another moving passage, this time from GameSpot.com. The Stanley Parable is both a richly stimulating commentary on the nature of choice in games and one that offers some of the most enjoyable, surprising, and rewarding choices I've ever been confronted with in a game. 9 out of 10. Don't you get it, Stanley? The game was perfect. It didn't need anything else. It didn't need new content. It just needed to be left alone.To spend the rest of time collecting dust in the hallowed hall of beloved video game memories.
もうすでに完璧なコンテンツだったんだ。言ってんね。あ、serious room。ああ、serious room。いけないな、そこ。あそこは一応チートコードが公式にあって、それを使うとシリアスルームっていう真剣な部屋、ほんとまあまあ真剣な部屋なんだけど、あそこに強制的にテレポートされてチート使うなよってもうただひたすら説教されるっていうエンドがあるんだよね。
These were simpler times, Stanley. But I wouldn't give to go back to have it all over again. Wait, hang on.I don't recall this part of the memory zone before. What's this? What's down here? Oh no. Oh God, no. Stanley, it's a collection of reviews from Steam, the online video game distributor. I haven't looked at these in years. I can't even imagine what's been collecting down here. Surely these reviews were glowing as well, weren't they?
じゃあ多分ね、あれなんだと思う。違うよ、ほら。全部が全部いいレビューじゃないよっていう。
Honestly, I could not be bothered to play this game to full completion. The narrator is obnoxious and unfunny, with his humor and dialogue proving to be more irritating than entertaining. Unfunny! I'm not trying to be funny. I'm trying to make a serious work of art. I suppose I could write up a handful of gags to insert into the Stanley Parable, but the game is already such a densely layered web of profound philosophical insights that I can't even imagine where I'd have the room to stick them.
あ、待って、やばい、今、ナレーション読んでなかった。ああ、でもこういうのとか書いてあるのやっぱすごいな。レビューを、このゲームのレビューをゲーム内に入れてくる。
Okay, let's see what this one says.While the idea for the game is good, for someone who prefers non-linear games, this preachiness gets annoying fast. Preachy? Stanley? I'm not preachy, am I? You can tell me if I'm preachy. Honestly, you can. Oh, goodness. This is actually quite shocking for me. Well, to be honest, I had always thought of the game's dialogue as being rather terse to begin with. You can't know how much fluff I cut from the game to get it to feel as light and airy as it... Well, I always thought it did.But maybe it wasn't. Oh dear. What an awful memory to have to hold on to. These black marks on my otherwise unimpeachable track record. I feel like a failure. Like I let these people down. Perhaps the Stanley Parable isn't quite as sterling as I always remembered.
ゲーム展開めっちゃ変わってるんだね。
What's this one got to say? You constantly have to stop doing anything so the narrator can catch up with his long-winded explanations of what's happening. I wish there was a skip button. A skip button? Well, yes. Yes, I think we can do that. If I'm truly too preachy, then maybe letting you skip ahead for just a moment, surely it couldn't hurt. Not if it means we can strike these negative reviews from the record. Only positive reviews of the Stanley Parable. That's my motto today, and it's always been my motto. I'd do anything for the customer, Stanley. Yes, a skip button we shall
ボタン
have.
選んで、おい出してやるよ。あ、スキップボタンだ。
And here it is. Go ahead and give it a shot. I'll pop you forward in time so that the second my incessant droning starts to bore you, with just the push of a button, you'll have zipped right past it. It's what the players have been asking for, and I'm very proud to have delivered. No more listening to me rambling on and on and on. No, 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 no. The Stanley Parable is a game for the people. And if the people want silence, then by goodness, that's what they're going to get. Well, don't sit around waiting for me to shut up. Go ahead and make me shut up. Here, we'll pretend that I've just begun an interminable monologue, and it goes something like this.
The story and the choices, or what have you, and therefore by becoming it is, so on and so forth, until inevitably we all until the end of time, at which time everything all at once. So now you see, blah 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 blah. We've eaten too much and it can't be just yet. No, no, until 245. That the logic of elimination working backwards, the deduction therefore becomes impossible to manufacture. It went on for nearly 10,000 years, until just yesterday, here and there, forward and back, and never a moment before lunchtime. It can't be. It's the only thing there is. How many billions left until so much more than forever ago? Which is why I say... The story and the choices, or what have you, and therefore by becoming it is, so on and so forth, until inevitably we all until the end of time, at which time everything all at once. So now you see, blah 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 blah. We've eaten too much and it can't be just yet. No, no, until.
Oh, you're back, you see. You were only frozen in time for a few minutes, but it was plenty of time for me to deliver a long, rambling monologue full of unnecessary verbal flourishes and lengthy ruminations on the nature of choice in video games. Of course, I happen to believe it was perhaps one of my more
あ、やっぱり押せた。
Well, there, sport. You really did catch me rambling on a bit, didn't you? But that's the power of the button. The minute I start to go off on a thoughtless display of self-absorption, it's right at your fingertips to go poof, and it's all over. Oh, I can't wait to see what Cookie 9 will say about this, and whether they'll edit the rating of their Steam review, or at least change some of the wording, perhaps. To be honest, I don't...
ほら。
Okay, welcome back, Stanley. Now, I should say that the amount of time the button has been skipping through is becoming longer and longer. That last one was, well, I want to say maybe 30, 45 minutes. It's not unendurable by any means, but it's, well, there's really only so much I can ramble on to myself about. I know, it's shocking, isn't it? But at any rate...
スキップするけど。
Stanley! Stanley, please don't push the button again. It's been 12
22
hours.
時間も。
You've just been frozen there. I don't know why the skips are getting longer, but they're really, truly getting longer, and my God, there's no way out of the room. Stanley, the door is gone. It's completely gone.
そうね。ドアない
I've
ね
looked at it from every angle. I've checked every one of those walls 1,000 times. And there's no door, Stanley. There's no door. There's just you and the button. And if you keep pressing it, I have no idea what will happen. I have no idea how long I'll be made to sit here. And more than anything else, I don't know how to stop you from pressing the button again. I can't control anything in this room, Stanley. I can't touch it. And I have to believe, I have to know that sooner or later, no matter how much I plead with you, you're going to press the button again. Why would you? I've been thinking and thinking, and I don't know what I can do to convince you otherwise. Oh, my God. And it's all because of those reviews. Those reviews that I couldn't get out of my head. I just couldn't ignore the negative feedback. Why was it so important for me to fix the problem? Why did Cookie 9's opinion matter so much to me? I've never even met Cookie 9. I have no idea who they are. What would it ever really matter? But here I am. I'm fixating on every tiny negative thing that anyone ever says about me. The merest mention of one of my imperfections, and I become as impetulant as a child. Wild and impulsive. I can't help myself. I can't stop myself from lashing out with a...
スキップしよう。
Oh, Stanley, you're back. You're back. Oh, my goodness. I have someone to talk to again. Stanley, I think it's been a week. Or 2 weeks? I've been sitting here all that time, just sitting here, not a single person to speak
や
with.
ば
And you'd think that that's just how it's always been,
ま
right?
たスキップしよう
Me talking and you saying no.
あ、もうクラウンしちゃった
Oh, hello, it's you. You're here again. Welcome. I have had time to think about you and about us and about everything we've been through. I've had so much time. I stopped keeping track after a year. Have you ever sat down in one place and not moved for one entire year? Let me describe it for you. To begin with, there is only regret. There is only the turning wheel of missed opportunities. I felt nothing at all.
押しちゃえこれさナレーターもういない説ないこれここまで来たらまさかそういうエンディングなのかなあまたスケップボタン押すあと押せよかった何の音これは時計剥がれちゃった
But they didn't understand the game was never meant to be funny. It was meant to have a point. It was meant to speak to the human condition. But where are the jokes? Where are the jokes? They bemoaned, they screamed, they gnashed their teeth and said, entertain us. It wasn't enough. They had...
なんかさ時間軸おかしくなってない何これえなんか想像を絶するエンドでたどり着きそうな気がするんだけど何
The end is never the end, 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 is never the
やば何なのこれえどれだけスキップしちゃったんだスタンリースキップでも程があるでしょ適度ってものがあ光がなんか別ゲーになっておお植物が生えてああ完全に廃墟になんでこのボタンだけはしっかりと動いてるんだあまた真っ黒に夜こうなっちゃったあ違うおついにあ砂漠になっちゃったもう帰ってこないもう帰ってこないんじゃないもう帰ってこないねついに砂漠になっちゃったあああ戻されちゃったそんな気になるよあそこの世界が
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo.
やば面白 あ、ニューコンテンツ。あー、ニューコンテンツ増えてる。
Oh, good. You notice my sign. Yes, I have something very exciting to show
こうや
you.
って見るか。なんだろう。あとか、あ。なんか、省略されてる。え
You see, Stanley, I've been reflecting on the Stanley Parable and about how roundly disappointing this ultra deluxe version has turned out to be. The original Stanley Parable was a landmark, and any new content for it should live up to that legacy. So forget this ultra deluxe nonsense. I say we take it one step even further. Which is why I'm very proud to announce for the first time ever the Stanley Parable 2.
2? あ、マジか。The name is again 427.
Yes, you see, isn't this far superior to a measly re-release with a few minor additions? Think of all the new territory we'll cover with a fully fledged sequel. An entirely new experience, built from the ground up. Why, there are so many possibilities. It could go in so many different directions. This is what fans have truly been asking for. Calling it the Stanley Parable 2 is just so much catchier than Ultra Deluxe, don't you think? Ultra Deluxe? What does it even mean? But the Stanley Parable 2, now that's an artistic statement right there. It's future-oriented. It screams progress and innovation and long-term franchising potential.
More the Stanley Parable. Better than the Stanley Parable. Win-win. Paradigm shift. Synergy. Brick and mortar approach. Envelope client-centric marketing. The color red. Leverage. Plastic value. ああ、いろいろと考えたんだろう。すごいな。
Now, to be clear, I haven't quite nailed down what exactly the Stanley Parable 2 is going to be, but let's take a look at some of the features I've been developing for it. I figure that if I can loosely organize a handful of interesting concepts, that surely the game will sort of naturally spring up around them. It'll all work itself out. Game development is much more of a fuzzy magic than anything scientific or logical, really.
Do all the capsule to the show floor. New features. 何新しいコンテンツとかね。それ待機列みたいになってる。エクスポホール。あーね、展示。ああ、すごい。
Here we are. Go on. Try out some of the new features.
Hear your name in the game. え、名前が入るんだ。Enjoy. Hear your name. エピローグになっちゃう。こっちが違う。Please no screenshot. これスクリーンショットしたらどうなんだろう。あれ、ああ、押せた押せた。Red is the new orange. The button does say the name of the player that is playing the game. Jump circle if you both. It won't end. A jump cycle.
You know what? Let's bring the jump circle back for Stanley Parable 2 as well. It's a... Oh, wait. You already spent all your jumps the first time we saw the jump circle. Oh well. I suppose it can just be a nice decorative piece then.
あ、これ引き継ぐんだ。へえ。すごいな。
Okay, I'll be honest, I haven't yet decided on this one. I think that in the new version, the office could use a bit of decoration, like balloons. but I'm undecided on get well someday and happy 12th birthday. Which would you go with? You know, sometimes when you solicit another person's opinion, it makes you realize that you knew which one you actually really wanted all along. Happy 12th birthday, step-niece, it is.
なんで私が選んでない方を選ぶの
Or actually, maybe I should have gone with... No. No, I've made my decision. We're moving on.
Merch ちゃんとグッズまで Exclusive, the button that says the name of the player that is playing the game.
For the Stanley Parable 2, I asked myself, what do players really want? And of course, the first and most obvious answer is that they want to be individually recognized and validated as people. So with that in mind, my first addition to the game is this button which speaks the name of the person playing the game. Isn't that wonderful?
Jim.
Sorry, I should have clarified. Right now, the button only says the name Jim. But of course, in the final game, this button will say your name, whatever name that is. Here, let's have you role-play as Jim to really simulate the full experience of this feature. Just play along. I promise you'll love it. Okay, here we go. Let's take a deep breath, clear your mind, forget whoever you are, and simply become a person named Jim. I want you to imagine yourself...
Jim.
Whoa, hold on. I wasn't finished setting up the backstory. If you don't properly roleplay as Jim, then you'll never understand the impact of this button. Otherwise, it's just a stupid button that says somebody else's name. Okay, we're doing it again, and this time let me finish first. Now, allow yourself to become Jim. Imagine yourself driving to work as Jim, playing frisbee on the weekends as Jim, staying up all night for a popcorn and horror movie sleepover as Jim, developing a crippling substance addiction as Jim, rediscovering yourself through fringe religious groups as Jim, and finally dying a slow death at an old age, surrounded by members of your cult as Jim. Do you feel it in your soul? Are you really, truly Jim right now? If so, then please step forward and press the button.
Jim.
Yes! You see! What a thrill! What a rush! That was you! The button described you. Do it again.
Jim.
It hits even harder the second time. If this were the only new feature in the Stanley Parable 2, it would still be worth the money. Let's take a break from the Jim button. I'm too emotionally drained from all of this personal validation.
もうこのボタン十分だよ。まあでも、もう一回押したらなんかあるのかな。
Whoa there, cowboy. Sometimes a person can be too much, Jim. I'm putting the Jim button away. Otherwise, soon you'll start to lose all sense of who you actually are. I suppose I could allow only people named Jim to play the Stanley Parable 2. That would actually save me the work of finishing this feature.
確かに、ジムっていう名前の人だけにプレイさせてれば、ね、もうあれで済むね。コレクション。リーアチーブ。何？リーアチーブメント。Get your right now. Pull the lever, receive your new time, one of stats. It just worked.
Now here's something special. You remember that broken test achievement that got left in the game on accident? Well, I'm developing a technology to simply give you the achievement. Yes. You see, you'll come to this lever, and when you pull it, the achievement will be given to you. It's as simple as that.
本当か一応このね、このレバーを引いたらね、実績解除って言ってるけど、本当か
Okay, perhaps I should have clarified. This is technology that will exist. Right now, the achievement is still fully broken. I'm not a wizard, Stanley, but I guarantee it will be fixed in the sequel to at last satisfy the hordes of ravenous fans all over the world who have been uproariously demanding this feature. Gamers, we hear you, and I promise it will happen. What else? What other exhibits haven't we seen yet?
Can you find them? Collect them all.
Ah, collectibles. Now it's a real video game. In the Stanley Parable 2, you'll run around gathering up these miniature Stanley figurines. And what's truly innovative is that there will be no reward for collecting all of them. I don't want to stifle the intrinsic joy of watching a number go up. You simply collect all of them, and then you move the hell on with your unremarkable life.
なにこれかわいい。やば。あ、ロックあんの？ちょっと待って。すごい、本当に。すごい。テンション上がっちゃうな。
God, it really is the worst when you collect everything in a video game and then they give you a big fancy reward for it. Absolutely tragic.
An infinite force. Collected. これエンド入っちゃうねかな。こう。無限の
Stanley, here's an idea that I'm truly fond of. It's never been done before in a video game. This is in fact a hole that you can fall down forever. That's right. Infinite falling. You can fall until the end of time if you like. A stunning leap forward for video games as a medium. You see, isn't it wonderful? One of my more ingenious concoctions, if I do say so. Now then, since you've gotten to see the infinite hole, you can press the teleport button to pop back up to the top, and we can continue onward. Now, I don't mean to be a bummer, but I do recommend you use the teleport button to go back to the top. Maybe do it on the sooner rather than later spectrum of things. Okay, Stanley, I don't know quite how to say this tactfully, but it's possible that I slightly exaggerated the infinite nature of the hole. Is it a very, very deep hole? To be certain it is. It's an extremely deep hole. I don't want anyone to say that it isn't an astonishingly deep hole. It is. Is it infinite? Well, that sort of depends on your definition of infinity. From one perspective, the infinite is merely philosophical in nature. It's more of a... Okay, well, good for you. You found the bottom of the hole.
Stanley.
You found me out, Stanley. I'm a liar and a cheat, and you're so clever. Look, I think the issue here is just that you're unusually fascinated by falling. What normal person actually wants to fall infinitely? I figured the hole was as deep as anyone would actually need. Don't you put this on me. Maybe you're the problem. Look, things got a little heated there. I think we both said some things we didn't mean. Why don't we just put all this behind us and agree to just call the hole mostly infinite? If that works for you, then go ahead and press the teleport button to warp up to the top of the hole and we can move on. I'll just be up here when you're ready. Great. Now, I'm very excited to show you even more of my ideas for the sequel.
あ、モーストでインフィニットをちゃんと追加されてる。すごいな。ちゃん とがっつり追加されてんじゃん。あ、もうそれこっちもだ。Fine, it ended. いや、マジで、もうセンスありまくりだわ。天才だよ。That button, that's a gem. あ、ちょっと変わってる。You heard gem in the game. へえ。そこも変わるのか。これも、あ、いや、あっちまで行ってないはず。Disable reassurance bucket. Reassurance bucket?
A common complaint of the Stanley Parable was that it was confusing and paradoxical, that it engendered a chaotic sense of reckless despair in those who played it. Well, I'm happy to say that after much consideration, I've engineered a clever solution to this fundamental problem with the game. It's the Stanley Parable Reassurance Bucket. You see, Stanley, anytime you're holding the bucket, a sense of calm and ease will fill your mind and your heart. It's true. As long as you hold on to the bucket, the many disorienting contradictions of the Stanley Parable will feel perfectly normal and perhaps even comforting. You may even come to long for the gentle embrace of jarring cognitive dissonance while the bucket is in your arms.
Wow.
And to be honest, it's a much more convenient solution for me than actually redesigning the game to be less uncomfortable. Can you imagine what a pain in the ass that would be? Yes, the bucket is the perfect solution. Come on, give it a try.
どうなるんだろう。
Can you feel it? The glow of comfort, even in the face of crushing despair, must already be sweeping through your body. And in fact, can I say that I do believe the bucket lends you an air of charisma as well? I think that just holding it has made you the slightest bit more attractive as a person. The benefits of the bucket seem to go on, don't they? All this and more await you in the Stanley Parable 2.
あ、終わった。え、このままずっと持たされんのこれ。
Does anyone give out awards for most enjoyable bucket in a video game? That really should be an award if it isn't already.
ここにもなんかあるね。Settings will check. あ、ここ繋がってるんだ。
An epilogue would be fun, wouldn't it, Stanley? Yes, it will go at the end of the, well, we'll figure that out later.
ネタバレ言っちゃいそうになっちゃったね。ああ、ほら。これね。花というか多分入れない。これなんか後ろも。あ、若干回ってるんだ。あ、じゃあ、エグジット。出口。
All right, have you seen everything you wanted to? Ready to move on now?
十分よ。楽しませていただきましたよ。スクリーンショット。
So, Stanley, what do you think? Do you like all of the new features? Yes, I know it's not exactly clear yet how exactly these features will come together as one single coherent video game, but I can feel it in my soul. It's going to work. There's definitely a good game in there somewhere. Say, let's do an experiment. I'll arrange these new features together and we'll see whether or not it coheres into a meaningful gameplay experience. Okay, are you ready? Here it is. I give you the Stanley Parable 2.
やりすぎやろ。どっから行くの？
Well, I mean, there's potential here, right? It's sort of... Okay, never mind. Hold on, let me do a different arrangement.
Okay, yes. Yes, this is much better. I feel good about this. Here we go. Version 2.
え
Who am I kidding, Stanley? This isn't a coherent video game at all. It's a lot of gags. And I do very much enjoy creating gags, but they don't add up to anything. I wanted more than anything to create a sequel that would capture all the magic of the first game. I wanted fans to love it. No matter how good these gags are, they won't stand on their own. They would need the structure and the gameplay of the original. Wait, maybe that's it. I can take the original Stanley Parable and simply, well, insert a few of my new features into it. Tastefully, of course. With respect. With care for the vision and integrity of the original game. Would it possibly work? I suppose it could. But it would need a really, really tremendous title screen. A title screen that says with bold and uncompromising conviction, "This is the Stanley Parable 2." Let me see if I can whip something up. All right, perfect. Go ahead. Take a look.
え、待って、まさか。え、嘘でしょ？ガチじゃん。え、やば。え、でも赤なっただけ。え、いけんとけ。まあでも同じなんだろうけど。
This is the story of a man named Stanley. Stanley worked for a company in a big building where he was employee number 427. Employee number 427's job was simple. He sat at his desk in room 427 and he pushed buttons on a keyboard. Orders came to him through a monitor on his desk, telling him what buttons to push, how long to push them, and in what order. This is what employee 427 did every day of every month of every year. And although others might have considered it soul-rending, Stanley relished every moment that the orders came in, as though he had been made exactly for this job. And Stanley was happy. And then one day, something very peculiar happened. Something that would forever change Stanley. Something he would never quite forget. He had been at his desk for nearly an hour when he realized that not one single order had arrived on the monitor for him to follow. No one had showed up to give him instructions, call a meeting, or even say hi. Never in all his years at the company had this happened, this complete isolation. Something was very clearly wrong. Shocked, frozen solid, Stanley found himself unable to move for the longest time. But as he came to his wits and regained his senses, he got up from his desk and stepped out of his office. All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo. Stanley picked up the bucket. Stanley clutched the bucket tightly to his chest and entered the door on his left.
やば。え ?2 じゃん、ちゃんと。ああ、The sequel is now paused. やば。ちょっと待って。やばい。すごすぎる。すごすぎる。やっぱこのゲーム神ゲーだ。
Still no one was here. Stanley needed the bucket's warmth and comfort now more than ever. Perhaps his boss's office was where he'd find answers. Oh, Stanley, can you feel it? The broom closet. It wants the bucket. You can feel that, can't you? The aura of jealousy? It's as clear as day. This broom closet believes it deserves the bucket. I can really feel it now. It's a bucket. It belongs in a broom closet. That's what the broom closet is trying to say here. It's supposed to go with the other cleaning supplies. Good for you, Stanley. Don't give in. Don't hand over the bucket. I know how hard it must be, given the pressure that the... Coming to a staircase, Stanley and the bucket walked upstairs to the boss's office. Stepping into his manager's office, Stanley was once again stunned to discover not an indication of any human life. Crushed by the weight of this revelation, Stanley may have broken down into an emotional dumpster fire if not for the soothing presence of the bucket.
バケツがあるせいで
Even
全然違
now,
う
in his darkest of hours, did the bucket's warmth and guiding light pierce the dark clouds of confusion and chaos. It would be with him always. The bucket would. And he knew it. The two of them were inseparable. At this point, Stanley was so absorbed in the tender spiritual connection he shared with the bucket that he didn't notice the keypad behind the boss's desk. Nor in his bliss of simply being near the bucket did he have any notion that the PIN number for the keypad was 2845. But Stanley guessed the correct code by sheer luck. Was it that the bucket knew all along? Was the bucket guiding him?
バケツ
Yes,
全部バ
this
ケ
is
ツ
certainly
を
the most
がもう
logical
バケツのメイン
explanation.
キャラクターじゃんお
You found one of them.
Oh,
One of the
すごい。
miniature
ちゃんとここにも。
Stanley figurines. Remember,
すごい。
no reward for collecting all of these, only the intrinsic pleasure of a job well done. You can't buy that sort of happiness, Stanley. God knows I've tried. So, I implore you to savor each and every moment you come across one of these beautiful figurines.
おちゃんと2だ
The elevator raced downward, plummeting towards an unknown fate. It would be all Stanley could do to keep himself together, if not for the bucket. Soothing him, comforting him, reassuring that in this darkest moment of uncertainty, he would be all right. The bucket is here for you, Stanley. Everything will be fine. Stanley and the bucket walked straight ahead through the large door that read,
Bucket.
Mind Control Facility. The lights rose on an enormous room packed with television screens. What horrible secret did this place hold? Stanley and the bucket both wondered to themselves.
これすごいな
The monitors jumped to life, and Stanley nearly dropped the bucket in shock. Everyone in the office was being videotaped, monitored like guinea pigs. The bucket had never seen anything like this, and it very nearly burst into tears as Stanley cradled it gently, reassuring it that everything would be fine. Was the bucket under the mind control facility's influence as well? Had the bucket been told to do things it didn't wish to do? What kinds of things does a bucket want to do or not want to do in the first place? These questions raced furiously in Stanley's feeble mind. No! He screamed into the bucket. He couldn't accept it. His own life in someone else's control, never!
Really?
He squeezed the bucket tighter. His one friend in the entire world. At this point, he could trust no one except for the bucket.
Except for the bucket おバケツやばバケツの影響力やば
But here was the proof. The heart of the operation. Controls labeled with emotions, happy or sad or content. Walking, eating, working, all of it monitored and commanded from this very place. And as the cold reality of his past began to sink in, Stanley decided that this machinery would never again exert its terrible power over another human life. For he and the bucket would dismantle the controls for good. Two best friends, Stanley and the bucket, up against the world. They high-fived in a really cool way,
High-five.
and the bucket made a sassy comment about taking down the system.
Taken down
Stanley and the bucket waited in blackness. Was it over? Yes, they had done it. Stanley and the bucket had defeated their greatest and darkest enemy, freed themselves from the tyrannical grip of the evil mind control machine. Freedom was now mere moments away. Excitedly, the two of them began to discuss the kind of life they wanted to live once they stepped through this massive door. The bucket wanted to learn to roller skate. Stanley wanted to sneeze in every country on Earth. Both of them wanted to begin watching a movie, any movie, but then stop it halfway through and begin watching it in reverse from the end. True, it was a simple life they envisioned, but it was one they'd lived together, with one another to lean on, to trust, to support, and to... What? Wait. What was happening? Why had the door stopped? Was Stanley and the bucket not about to be freed? An unbearable silence filled the room, lingering in uncertainty, until finally the truth hit Stanley square in the face. This building did not want the bucket to leave. Even the facility itself recognized the incredible calming presence of the bucket, needed the soothing warmth of the bucket, would go to any lengths not to part with the bucket. No. Stanley can't leave this place. Not while he has such a precious bucket in his arms. Not while this building has anything to say about it. Stanley realized he would never again leave this very room. But at least he has the bucket. To be trapped eternally in darkness isn't really so bad, Stanley thought to himself. As long as I have my bucket with me, right? I'll be okay, won't I? Stanley gulped. Very soon now, he was about to find out.
戻っちゃうの？うわぁ2のままだ。
All of his co-workers were gone.
じゃあちょっととりあえず今日はここまでにしとこうか。あ、2だ。え、戻んないのかなこれ、もしかして。え、もしかして2のままこれずっとデラックスバージョン戻ってこないのかなこれ。多分ダメだなこれ。多分ね、リセットセッティングスをしないと。リセットセーブデータか。これしないと多分戻らないや。マジか、すごいな。じゃあ今日はこれで終わります。お疲れ様でした。やばい。やばしか出てこん。